Okay, who's got the lock? What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another very exciting episode of Tin Invest, where I'm your host, Jimmy Bishrat. Today's an exciting one because we're going to be breaking down like 5 different companies as well as one ETF. More specifically, we're going to be talking about the sports betting industry, an industry that I myself am extremely bullish on. And that's also why I'm wearing this jersey right now. Yeah, my Phillip Rivers jersey. That's because, well, Phillip Rivers is the best, and go Chargers. See, the sports betting industry reminds me a lot of the cannabis industry. It's fun, it's new, it's being talked about, and more importantly, it's dependent on the state's rulings. Now, for the sake of this video, I think it'll be beneficial for all of us if I run through some pros and cons on the entire sports betting industry as a whole. And then after that, I'll run through the 5 companies and that ETF that I mentioned. So cons, what exactly am I scared of when it comes to sports betting? Well, for starters, there's a lot of money involved. And well, as they say, more money, more problems. For instance, in California, we've run into the roadblock of Native American casinos fearing that they would lose a lot of income if the states were to just legalize gambling from mobile devices like we're seeing happening. Now, the reason I thought it was important to bring this up is because no matter how clean-cut legalizing sports betting may sound, like, oh, more money for the states, more revenue, why wouldn't we legalize it? Well, because every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And in this sense, you're seeing it happen with the natives, how they're getting hurt. So though it's not a massive roadblock, it's still standing in the way of full federal legalization. Apart from that, the next negative I see, or the next con for sports betting, is more in the sense for citizens' well-being. See, the thing with sports betting is every guy who watches sports thinks they know it better than anyone. So when they find out you could gamble on these players and these sports and these stats, they're like, dude, sign me up. I'm going to be a monster at this. I won't miss. And while that false sense of confidence could get them to wager amounts that they shouldn't. And since anything can happen in sports, and also since the book typically has the edge, well, we'll most likely see people get hurt. See, the thing with sports betting and really all gambling is Vegas always wins. The house always wins. So finally, by being able to invest in these sports betting stocks and these Vegas stocks, it essentially puts me on the winning side for once. Okay, so some numbers for the sports betting industry. Since the NFL season just kicked off, I figured we'll take some numbers from there and take a look at last year's handle as well as look at this year's expected handle. So in New Jersey alone, there was more than $117 million wagered on the Super Bowl. That was a massive increase of 116% when compared to the year before. And these numbers are expected to continue growing. From a forecast done by PlayUSA.com, they expect the NFL and college football handle to reach $20 billion, estimating that it can create a $1.5 billion in revenue for the operators. Now, should that $20 billion figure be realized, it'd nearly triple the estimated 2020 football handle of $7.5 billion. And again, these numbers are just in regards to football, not the NBA, not March Madness, not Premier League, not any of that, just football. Just your friendly reminder that I am not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. All right, let's continue. But $20 billion, that's a massive number. But I personally can see it reign true. And I feel like these numbers are being backed by the viewership in this year's Week 1 NFL. Now, I know correlation isn't always causation. But do you really think it's a coincidence that the NFL has seen such a rise in viewership as more states have legalized sports betting? Overall, the NFL Week 1 saw a 7% increase in viewers. But the game that saw the biggest boost was Monday Night Football. The first Monday Night Football broadcast of the season averaged 15.3 million viewers, which is up 59% over last season's Week 1 Monday Night. But why Monday Night Football? Why is that taking such a massive boost? Well, I'm going to take a quote straight from one of my favorite Matthew McConaughey movies, Two for the Money. In the movie, he's going back and forth with his boss Al Pacino, and Pacino says, "Do you know why Monday Night Football is the most watched football game of the week? Well, that's because Monday is the last chance bettors have to climb out of the hole they got themselves into." Now, I know that was an awful Al Pacino impression, But that movie was made in 2005. And what he's saying is kind of being shown on a much larger scale today. Well, since I know you guys didn't come here to see me do Al Pacino impressions, and you did come here to hear me talk about some stocks, let's get started. We'll start with one of my favorite sports betting stocks, and that's Penn International, aka Barstool Sports. See, the thing with this one is I've always been attracted to Barstool Sports. I mean, even before they went public with Penn and made that partnership with Penn, I always said if I had the opportunity to invest in Barstool, I would. And that's simply because I see how they continue to just dominate the internet. Dave Portnoy and his team are marketing wizards. I mean, just a few examples. You know that drink High Noons? It's kind of like another one of those seltzers. Well, good luck finding it on the shelves. And if you do, they're going to be probably double the price of a White Claw. And that's because Dave Portnoy and Barstool decided to start promoting that one. Another thing is Dave Portnoy is also the guy who does the pizza reviews. And after he gives a good score to a pizza place, that place will forever have a line out their door. Among that, on Instagram, they have over 11 million followers, and their podcasts are on the top of Apple Music. My point being is Dave Portnoy and Barstool Sports knows how to get their name out there. And with an industry that's so reliant on creating customers, well, I trust no one else other than Dave Portnoy to bring those customers in. Penn plans to use the Barstool name as a way to remarket and reimage their casinos and, more importantly, their sportsbook and sportsbook app. But yeah, I did say casinos. Penn has begun theming the table games and slots in Barstool-themed gaming areas. And when they do so, get this guys, the table games, those increase 27%, and the slots increase 26%. The Barstool name is such a powerful one, and I am very excited to see the ways that Penn chooses to use it. But one thing to note is I am very biased about Dave Portnoy and Barstool Sports. I'm definitely a big fan of them. But nonetheless, Portnoy definitely has his negative side to him, and a few cons that go along with him. For instance, since he's such a YOLO and open-minded, basically says what's on his mind, it could definitely get him into some trouble and even create some enemies. More specifically, Roger Goodell, one of Dave Portnoy's biggest enemies, is also the commissioner of the NFL. Now, I won't get into the drama because that's just an entire video in and of itself. But what I will mention is this feud can cause roadblocks if Barstool Sports and Penn ever try to open up a sports book inside of an NFL stadium. And yeah, that's a thing. A few Vegas names have even already started putting in sports books into major league stadiums. And I guess this is a perfect segue into the next companies I wanted to talk about. MGM and Caesars, the prominent Vegas brands. See, both of these companies have already begun making the effort to get themselves into stadiums, but both of them are doing it in kind of different ways. See, MGM has made the effort to open up a sports book inside the Washington Nationals Park, as well as they made the clear plan to open up a sports book in the Arizona Cardinals football stadium by 2022. But they aren't alone when it comes to implementing themselves in major league stadiums. Caesars plans to open a sportsbook in the Arizona Diamondback Stadium by next year. Caesars also decided to go as far as buying the naming rights to the New Orleans Saints Superdome. And during week 1 of the NFL, I definitely saw how much they were advertising and putting effort towards taking over the NFL community. But in-stadium sportsbooks, why are these companies rushing towards this? What's the big deal? Well, just imagine this vision. You and your friends go to a Padre game, and your friend says to you, every time I come to a Padre game, Fernando Tatis hits a home run, or every time I come to a game, the Padres win. Well, now your friend is, as he's walking to his seat and sees a sportsbook with odds running across the screen, he might be more incentivized to impulse bet on the Padres, or maybe make an impulse bet that Tatis hits a homer that day. See, what I'm getting at is it's now made a lot easier for someone who doesn't typically gamble to just say screw it and toss a couple bucks on the game. And just imagine if your friend wins. That sportsbook would have created a customer for life. Now, apart from sports betting, MGM and Caesars also offer a way to get in on the Vegas reopening play. Some other prominent Vegas names that could be considered are Wynn Casino as well as William Hill. You can just consider those two some bonus stocks in this video. Okay, next up, let's talk about everyone's favorite sports betting stock, the OG SPAC. That's right, let's talk about DraftKings. See, the biggest benefit for DraftKings is they're already a prominent name when it comes to online wagering on sports. DraftKings started in 2012 as a daily fantasy sports platform. Basically, it allows you to make a new fantasy team every week and then play against random people for money. But how is that legal? Isn't that gambling? Well, DraftKings found that the federal law specifically exempts fantasy sports contests from the prohibitions of the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act. So most likely, if you played fantasy and were over 18, you probably even just made an account out of curiosity. I mean, I even have an account, but the way they hooked me was by offering me Fantasy Pros, a research software which costs money. They gave me that for free as long as I made a DraftKings account. This is likely why the company has been able to get over 8 million registered users. So, what's the big deal? Someone already has a DraftKings account. So what? What's the added benefit from that? Well, think about when sports betting becomes legal in that person's state. Let's imagine Jacob from Arizona. Jacob used to play on DraftKings. He's even won money on that before, so he knows the process of cashing out and he even has a trust for the website. See, Jacob didn't really play much. He found the whole concept confusing and time consuming. But recently, sports betting has become legal in his state, and he is now seeing DraftKings push commercials and advertising that they also double as a sports book. So, Jacob remembers, hey, I have an account, let's see what this is all about. Thus getting him to log into his DraftKings account and potentially gamble on one of the games. Rather than, let's say, having to go through the process of making an account on a completely new website, Jacob is able to just log in to his DraftKings account. So DraftKings has that going for them. And on top of that, they're advertising, like a lot. $500 million a lot. Through partnerships with the ESPN, among other things, they have costed themselves a hefty marketing bill. Now, looking in the future, this could be a good thing, or it might not pay off. Who knows? But one thing I want to note is Barstool Sports is able to avoid paying this marketing fee because they're able to market and advertise themselves so well. I mean, Dave Portnoy has even gone as far as tweeting out, talking about how Penn is on sale since they don't endure these costs. And yeah, Penn stock may cost more money, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is more expensive than DraftKings. See, with DraftKings, you're paying the premium of a 21x price to sales and a 10x price to book. While with Penn, they're only at a 2 price to sales and a 4 price to book. So maybe Dave Portnoy is onto something when he's calling this stock cheap. And just for some added data, MGM is at a 3x price to sales and price to book, and Caesars is at a near 3 price to sales and a 4 price to book. So all relatively much cheaper than DraftKings. But these companies also have the added backing of being an established physical casino chain. That's something that DraftKings might be missing under their belt. Now, I know I just mentioned a few potential investments that may seem somewhat similar to one another. So if you like the industry and you're bullish on the industry, but you're not sure which is your favorite, I have 2 potential investments that could be a better way investing in the sports betting industry. The first one is pretty basic, and it's through an ETF called Bets. Bets holds the companies that we've talked about, but they also gain exposure to companies from around the world, as well as a few others like Flutter and some names that I'm not talking about today. Now, the other way about going about investing in the sports betting industry is through one of my favorite stocks, and I kind of consider it my secret stock since it doesn't get talked about, at all. That company is Genius Sports. Genius is essentially the thing behind the thing. They are, when you wonder how the heck did Vegas know the spread was going to be 6 points? How is Vegas all the right? They are how. They're the thing behind the thing. They are the odds. They basically get the data from the sports leagues and then turn that into odds, which they then sell to MGM, to DraftKings, to Penn, to all these companies. They're essentially essential to the industry. And the best part is, they make more money as gross gaming revenue increases. So as more people are gambling on sports, Genius Sports makes more money. This company is one of my favorite holdings and one of my biggest holdings. So if you haven't seen my full breakdown on Genius Sports, I'll put the thumbnail like right there, definitely go give it a look. It's one of my earlier videos, so it might not be the best of quality, but the information is all there. Well, everyone, that's all I got for you today. If you enjoyed this approach on breaking down the full industry as a whole, be sure to let me know in the comments below. That way I can do more videos like this in the future. The reason I chose to do it this way for this video is because I really love this industry. And if you can't tell, I'm really bullish on this industry, which makes me have a liking for pretty much all the companies I talked about today. So rather than making you wait for me to post each individual breakdown, which takes me so much time to do, I decided rather I'll put these names in your head, and that way when I post the full breakdown, hopefully you would have done a little bit of background research on these companies. Well, everyone, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and be sure to comment your thoughts, like this video, and subscribe to my channel. I've apparently been trapped or gotten stuck in the YouTube basement, so the only way I guess I can get out of it is with your guys' help. So please, help me get out of this basement by liking my videos and subscribing to my channel. It really means a lot. Anyways, that's all for today. Always remember, the time is now. And also, Philip Rivers is #1.